Monte Burke is the author of Saban, The Making of a Coach. We had to call him in today because this was such a big moment. Monte, a year later, what have we learned about Nick Saban since that exchange back and forth with him and Jimbo?
I love that exchange, by the way. You know, there's a whole book being written about that exchange. And if that's not the SEC football in a nutshell, I don't know what is it. So it's pretty clear that Saban doesn't like the way NIL works right now. And he didn't like the fact that Jimbo out-recruited him that year and kind of outsmarted him. You know, he's complained a lot. Nick's complained a lot about how kids are going to schools for money and not necessarily for the best fit and blah, blah, blah. His advantage, you know, for years and years and years was in the face-to-face recruiting. And that advantage is not as big as it used to be because of all this money flowing around. But you have to remember that everything that Saban does is measured, and he does it all for a reason. You know, he uses the media brilliantly to talk to an intended audience. It's never the people who you think he's addressing. He's usually talking to a recruit, or he's talking to his team, or he's talking to his fans. He gets on there and he complains about, you know, not enough noise in the stadium. And in this case, he was talking to boosters. You know, he's the rare old dog who can learn new tricks. You know, whenever he's been faced with something new in college football, he's adapted and adjusted. You know, one good example is the dawning of high-powered offenses. He's an old defensive coach. He hates high-powered offenses. What did he do? He went out and hired Lane Kiffin. He got recruited Tua and Bryce. You know, so I think this is an adaptation, and he was caught a little flat-footed. Jimbo beat him on the field in 2021, and then he beat him in recruiting that year. And I think this moment that he knew that would get out somehow, that what he said there, that was kind of his clarion call.
Wait, Monte, are you sure he knew that was going to go national? Because I've thought I've read that it was a bizarre little event about something of World Games in Alabama or something. Did he know for sure that was going to the national media, what he was saying about Jimbo?
I think he thought that there was a good chance it would, and even if it didn't, the people in that room were the people that he, you know, wanted to reach there. Those are the boosters. Those are the people he was saying, look, you've done great. We've done great. We need to do better. We need more money. And, you know, I think since then he's caught up. I mean, you've got that, there's that new something called the Advantage Club, which is a project they're doing with Learfield, which is a big sports management company, sports marketing company that is going to be sort of the hub of all their NIL stuff. And then they have Yay Alabama, which is which is basically Alabama's collective. And, you know, he beat, you know, the proof's kind of in the pudding already. I mean, he beat Jimbo on the field last year, barely, but he beat him. And he beat him in recruiting this year. Next year's class is shaping up to be pretty good too. So it's so fascinating to me to watch him go through these things because you could see the pain in his face. He's got everything working perfectly, and then all of a sudden something switches up. But he does such a masterful job, even at his age, of, you know, adapting and adjusting to whatever is thrown his way.
We're talking to Monte Burke, author of Saban, and also, if you're looking for a Father's Day present, Lords of the Fly, the greatest tarpon fishing book that it is and ever will be, Monte. I loved it. I didn't know what tarpon fishing was until I read this. It is really cool. But,
awesome.
Monte, if you say he's caught up, then why is Alabama falling a little bit in these really early preseason rankings? It feels like now they're in an unusual place where they're behind Georgia and maybe a couple other programs, which we're not used to at all.
Yep. So I think, you know, this year is perhaps a bit of an anomaly. I mean, they clearly, you know, from the outside anyway, it looks like they don't have a quarterback. I mean, none of the three quarterbacks who played in the spring game were very good. Jalen Milroe, who I love, has all the talent in the world. And to my mind, you know, could be a Heisman contender if he could cut down on some mistakes and, you know, work on his passing game a little bit. He's by all rights and means a great kid. And it looked like a panic move to bring in Tyler Buchner from the second string guy at Notre Dame. But, you know, we don't know anything. We don't know if Milroe is going to be the starter. We don't know if Buchner is going to be any good. You know, I think every year to expect them to be ranked in the preseason rankings in the top 2 or top 3 is a lot to ask. And you may have a down year here. They, of course, have the number 1 QB recruit coming in next year, kid from California whose last name is Saban. And, you know, if he tumbles down, it wouldn't be surprised to me. Wouldn't surprise me this year if they lose 2 games, maybe 3 games, and maybe have a little bit of a down year. But I would guess, based on this year's recruiting class and the class coming in next year and the way that Saban adapts and adjusts to all this stuff, that they'll be back up there pretty soon. And I'm not writing off this year, by the way, not at all. I think they have a really good looking team, save for a relatively big question mark at quarterback. But the running backs look great. Offensive line looks great. The defense, even though they lost Anderson, looks spectacular. So we'll see.
Monte Burke is our guest. He's the author of Saban, The Making of a Coach. We're talking about Saban. It's been a year exactly since the Saban, Jimbo Fisher war of words over NIL. Monte, last one from me with you, and we haven't talked to you since. Georgia won their second straight national title. How is that resonating with Saban?
I mean, it has to drive him absolutely crazy. I mean, it wasn't until 2021 was the first time he lost to one of his proteges. And since then, he's lost a couple times. So I think it's driving him crazy. And I think in some ways it's if you're an Alabama fan, you have to be, in some ways, maybe happy about this, because this is, I think, going to drive him, for one last hurrah here, whether he retires in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, who knows? But I think this is maybe that little craw, that little thing that's stuck in his craw, that's going to motivate him to get back sort of at these guys. I mean, I think Georgia's a juggernaut now. There's no doubt about it. Kirby's a great coach. Georgia should be favored to win it all. That's for sure. But, I sort of like Saban in this underdog role, I have to say, especially, in what has to be the fourth quarter of his career here. I like the fact that he's having to be nimble. I saw today that he's actually vacationing in Italy, which I think is actually kind of interesting too. He rarely takes vacation, so maybe this is a little mind-clearing thing. I don't know what's going on, but again, they got to play the games. We'll see what happens.
Monte, there's no way he's in Italy. He's checking out kickers. Obviously, soccer players, that's what he's doing. He's working over in Italy.
Some huge Venetian center over there.
Yeah.
That he's meeting with. Yeah.
Monte, so he's 71. He'll turn 72 this season. When Nick Saban retires, is this era of Alabama dominance end?
It all depends on the next coach, obviously. I mean, the thing about this NIL thing, as it stands right now, is that there are schools that have advantages over Alabama when it comes to money. I mean, Texas, you can't compete with Texas or Texas A&M or even Oregon for that matter. So, what they can do is bring it up to a certain level, which I think he's done now, where they could be at least competitive with those schools and their collectives. And then he could say, hey, also, here's 6 national titles over here, and look who got drafted, look which players got drafted in the NFL draft this year. So it's going to depend on who they get. I mean, the speculation has always been that Dabo will want to come home to mama. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but it's all going to be about whether they get a coach who can continue this incredible run of excellence. And man, it's hard. After Bear Bryant, there were 25 years in the wilderness. I mean, there was that one national title in 1992 with Gene Stallings, but it was a rough 25 years. So we'll see.
Real quick, Monte. So Saban and Jimbo Fisher kind of said they forgave each other and got along. Is that real? Are those two really okay with each other?
I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, I think that Saban has a very cordial relationship with most of his former assistants, including Kirby Smart, by the way. I think someone told me that they see each other sometimes in the summer and have a glass of iced tea. Jimbo, it seemed a little more personal. And especially when, re-listening to what Jimbo said there, it's very personal with Jimbo as well. So it may not be on Saban's side, it may be on Jimbo's side, but they don't seem to like each other one bit at all. And that happens. That's fine.
Monte, can't tell you how much we appreciate this. All things Nick Saban and everyone in his orbit, the author of Saban, The Making of a Coach, Monte Burke. We'll catch up with you soon again, Monte. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you guys for having me on. See you later.
Thanks, Monte.